Stop for a moment. Look around. Even amid laughter, goals achieved, and daily distractions, something inside you still feels like something is missing, doesn't it? You strive to stay in control, but the restlessness persists. A silent, hidden voice reminds you that running away doesn't extinguish what burns within. What if I told you that this suffering, so familiar, doesn't come from the outside world, but from within, and more, that there is a way for it to stop dominating your life? For years we've sought external solutions for discomfort that is born in silence. We change jobs, cities, partners. We pursue courses, gurus, distractions. But the emptiness, it always returns. Psychiatrist and thinker Carl Jung, one of the most influential names in psychology, dedicated his life to understanding why. He discovered that suffering is not a mistake. It is a signal, a call from what is most true within us. Today, you will understand why ignoring this truth may condemn you to repeat the same painful patterns forever, or how embracing it can set you free once and for all. In our culture, we've been taught to believe that suffering comes from outside. Economic crises, betrayals, illnesses, the chaos of the world. But Jung was direct. The deepest suffering comes from disconnection from who we truly are. When we deny who we are to meet external expectations or avoid judgment, we create a gap within ourselves. And the more we ignore this gap, the more it hurts. It's not hard to notice this in everyday life. Think about the uncomfortable feeling of pretending you're fine when all you wanted was to fall apart, or when you say yes to avoid conflicts, even though your will screamed no. Each choice that betrays the authentic self builds tension. This tension does not disappear. It transforms. Anxiety, insomnia, irritation, without an apparent reason. All of this is the echo of a deep disconnection. Jung understood that fleeing from this internal conflict is useless. Denying our most authentic emotions and thoughts only makes them more powerful. They hide, silently, until the moment they explode in ways we cannot control. In this context, suffering is not the enemy, it's the messenger. It tells us that something essential is being ignored. As long as we try to silence this call with distractions, whether social media, excessive work, or addictions, it will keep coming back, louder and more urgent each time. When faced with pain, our first reaction is almost always to run. After all, who would want to face what bothers us, what threatens the image we've built of ourselves? It's easier, or at least it seems to be, to seek refuge in the small anesthetics of daily life. Social media offering instant distraction, food that comforts for a moment, alcohol that silences the unease, shopping that masks the emptiness. These are the modern crutches. Jung called these defense mechanisms, but running away doesn't help. Repressed pain doesn't disappear, it just hides. And the more we push it away, the more it manifests in silent and destructive ways. Explosions of anger with no apparent reason, chronic procrastination, self-sabotaged, disguised as I'm not good enough. Each of these reactions is a symptom of the refusal to look within. Ignoring emotions is like trying to cover a crack in a wall with paint. It may work for a while, but sooner or later the structure will give way. Jung did not see defense mechanisms as failures, but as unconscious survival strategies. They are desperate attempts to protect the self from what it fears it cannot bear. But here lies the dilemma. Protecting yourself from pain also means blocking access to self-knowledge. Have you noticed how often you repeat patterns you swore to abandon? Relationships that always end the same way, projects left unfinished, choices that go against what you truly desire. This isn't bad luck. It's the unconscious in command while you pretend not to listen. As long as fear dictates the rules, the shadow will continue to drive your life without you realizing it. Running away only postpones the inevitable. Sooner or later, pain will find a way to emerge. And the more denied it is, the more destructive its entry will be. Facing yourself may seem risky, but continuing to run is infinitely more dangerous. Every escape can turn into a return. From the moment we decide to stop anesthetizing and start observing, really observing, the emotions we avoid, we take the first step toward regaining control of our own existence. There are parts of you that never see the light of day. They live hidden, denied, as if they didn't exist, but they do exist, and they silently influence every thought, decision, and reaction. Carl Jung called this the shadow, and it is present in all of us. The shadow is everything we reject in ourselves. Traits we consider unacceptable, emotions we judge as improper, impulses we try to suppress. Since childhood, we have learned that certain behaviors are unwelcome. Anger, envy, jealousy, forbidden desires, society, parents, school, all contribute to shaping our persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. What doesn't fit, we push deep down. But pushing away doesn't erase. This hidden side does not disappear. It becomes unconscious. And in the unconscious, it gains power. Have you ever wondered why, at times, you say or do things that seem unlike you? Have you ever felt shame or guilt for thoughts that arise uninvited? That is the shadow manifesting, asking to be recognized. Jung was clear. The danger is not in the existence of the shadow, but in denying it. What you refuse to face becomes what controls you the most. The shadow acts without your permission, guiding your choices, sabotaging your relationships, and perpetuating suffering. It is like an invisible guest, setting the rules without the host even noticing. But facing the shadow does not mean giving in to impulses or justifying destructive behaviors. It means recognizing that you are more than the idealized image you have created. It means accepting that within each person there is both light and darkness, and true freedom comes from integrating, not excluding, these parts. Denying the shadow is living halfway. Integrating it is the first step to becoming whole. It is painful, it is uncomfortable, but it is essential. Jung did not see the shadow as an enemy. He saw it as a portal to transformation. After all, how can you change what you refuse to accept exists? The shadow does not reveal itself in extraordinary moments. It acts, above all, in the ordinary. In traffic, when anger arises disproportionately. In trivial conversations, when the need to be right suffocates empathy. In intimate relationships, when jealousy or resentment explodes without warning. The shadow is patient. It infiltrates daily life, silent and relentless. How many times have you caught yourself saying something and, seconds later, wondered, why was I so aggressive? Or adopting self-sabotaging behaviors like procrastinating exactly what you most want to accomplish. These are not accidents. These are the ways the shadow acts when it remains unconscious. Imagine this. Someone gives you constructive criticism, but you react defensively and even hostilely. It is not the criticism that hurts, but what it touches inside you, perhaps a buried insecurity, an old fear of not being good enough. It is the shadow that, when provoked, manifests in a desperate attempt to protect the ego. Jung observed that the shadow often expresses itself through projection onto others. What we criticize or reject most in people is usually a reflection of what we deny in ourselves. Have you ever noticed how certain behaviors in others irritate you deeply, even if they seem insignificant to others? It's not about them, it's about you. Projection is one of the most common and dangerous ways the shadow manifests. It distorts reality, destroys relationships, and feeds cycles of suffering. When we do not recognize our own repressed contents, we begin to see them everywhere, except in ourselves. Living unaware of the shadow is like walking with a stone in your shoe and blaming the road for the pain. With each step, the discomfort increases, yet we keep blaming the outside world, until one day the pain forces us to stop. At that moment, we have a choice, to keep ignoring or finally look within. The repetition of the same mistakes, the emptiness that insists on appearing even in achievements. Everything pushes you in one direction, to face what has been denied. But confronting the shadow is a process. It requires something few are willing to offer: brutal honesty with oneself. Jung did not romanticize this path. He knew that looking at your own darkness is uncomfortable, sometimes devastating. It is accepting that you too are selfish, envious, petty at times. It is admitting that there are impulses and desires that contradict the perfect image you have built. And, most importantly, it is understanding that denying this does not make you better, only more unconscious. Facing the shadow begins with small moments of honesty. That instant when, instead of justifying an outburst of anger, you ask, "What really hurt me here?" Or when, upon judging someone harshly, you question, "What am I projecting onto this person that bothers me so much?" These simple questions open doors to forgotten inner territories. But don't be fooled. The shadow does not surrender easily. It resists, it lies. It will try to convince you that everything is under control, that you are just like this, that the problem is always with others. That's why Jung spoke of the importance of courage and constant vigilance. Without the willingness to expose these illusions, you will remain a prisoner. The beauty is that when you begin to accept the parts you have rejected for so long, something changes. The impulses do not disappear, but they stop ruling your life. You cease being a hostage to the constant need to appear perfect. There is freedom in accepted imperfection. Confront the shadow. Say to yourself, "I see who I am with all my flaws. And even so, I choose to move forward." This understanding is built through reflection, internal dialogue, and the humility to recognize that the work will never be completely finished. But by taking this step, the shadow stops being an enemy. It becomes an ally. Its energy, once used to sabotage, now strengthens. You come closer to what Jung called individuation, the state of being whole. And it is in this movement that real transformation begins. Pain has a bad reputation. Seen as an enemy, it is avoided at all costs. We seek immediate relief, flee from internal confrontations, numb emotions. Ignoring pain is like ignoring a fire alarm. It is annoying, insistent, but it does not exist to punish you. It exists to save you. In the same way, suffering points to the parts of us that need attention, healing, and reintegration. Denying this function is to condemn yourself to repetition, and nothing is more distressing than reliving the same dramas, wearing different characters. Observe honestly. How many times have you found yourself in familiar cycles? The scenarios change, the people change, but the outcome is always the same. Relationships ending due to lack of communication, lost opportunities due to fear, choices made to please that leave a bitter taste. This is pain acting as a teacher, and until you learn the lesson, the class repeats itself. But when we stop resisting and start listening, everything changes. Discomfort becomes a map. It shows where the persona, that social mask, is no longer enough. It reveals where the shadow screams for recognition. It illuminates the path to reconnecting with the authentic self. Jung did not promise that this process would be easy. Real transformation never is. Facing pain requires humility to admit that we do not have all the answers. It demands patience not to run away at the first sign of discomfort. But, above all, it requires presence. Only those willing to truly feel are capable of moving through. And what happens when the shadow ceases to be an enemy? This is where Jung introduces us to individuation. It is not about eliminating flaws or erasing suffering. It is about becoming whole. To individuate is to unite the opposites that dwell within us. Light and darkness, love and hate, reason and impulse. It is to accept that all these aspects make up who we are. There is no freedom while parts of us are denied. In the individuation process, the idea of eliminating pain loses meaning. Pain becomes part of the path. It informs, guides, and, in many moments, inspires. It does not disappear, but it becomes less threatening. Not because it has become smaller, but because you have become bigger. This is where many are mistaken. When they hear "never suffer again," they believe it is possible to live without discomfort, without losses, without contradictions. This is illusion. Jung never promised a life without pain. What he revealed is that, by becoming conscious and integrating your shadow, pain loses the power to paralyze you. You suffer, but suffering no longer destroys you. It becomes part of the natural flow of life. Individuation is, therefore, freedom. Freedom to be who you are, with all your nuances. Freedom to no longer react impulsively to old wounds. Freedom to act authentically, even in a world that demands masks. Individuation is not a selfish act. It makes you more capable of contributing, of loving, of transforming not only yourself, but also the world around you. That is why Jung firmly said that the salvation of the world lies in the individual who has become conscious. When you integrate your shadow, you no longer carry your pain to others. You do not project, you do not repeat destructive patterns. You begin to radiate what so many desperately seek: presence and authenticity. Individuation is not a luxury for the few or an end in itself. It is a commitment. When you become whole, you carry the responsibility of living authentically, not only for yourself, but for the world around you. It's not about perfection or heroism, it's about coherence. This begins with small, daily choices. Saying what you truly feel, even if it displeases others. Refusing old roles that only fed the mask. Stopping the projection onto others of what is yours to resolve. These simple but deeply courageous gestures shape a new way of being. In this process, there will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt. This is natural. But the difference is that now you know, you have seen. You are no longer a hostage to unconscious patterns. That already changes everything. Jung believed that by taking on this responsibility, the individual became not only freer but more human, more capable of compassion, more tolerant of others' imperfections, more connected to the totality of existence. When intense emotions arise, instead of repressing them, ask yourself, what does this reveal about me? Write down your dreams. Jung saw them as direct messages from the unconscious. Read about the shadow, revisit Jung's works, or keep a journal to map recurring patterns. If you enjoyed this content and want to understand more about life's questions, subscribe to the channel and share this video with others who are also among the awakened.